Okay, go ahead.
So, black folks used to live in this area, like Tompkins Square Park and in this general area. And then during the draft riots, which the draft riots were about that if you had enough money, you could buy yourself out of the draft, which meant that poor people then had to go and
What year are we talking about?
Well, this was like
you said we started at the burial ground area.
Burial ground areas like just out of, remember Wall Street got that name because they put a wall up there, and so black people had to live always on the outskirts of the main area of the city. So in the 18th century, right? So 18th century, that's why the Negro burial ground was we were put there. That was the outside of the city at the time. They would not let black people be buried in the main area where white people lived and where they had their cemeteries. And so gradually, as the city expanded, black people always got moved out, like on the outskirts. So like in the 1860s and before, then this area was sort of like the outskirts. I mean, they had, farms and other stuff, but basically this was like one area, And so when the draft riots happened because poor whites did not want, they felt that they were being wronged, that they didn't have money to escape the draft, and because we were viewed as the cause of the Civil War and their plight, they attacked us. And they, it was, heavy riots. It was so heavy that Lincoln had to send troops from the troops that just fought at Gettysburg had to be sent here to New York to quell the riot. That's how deep it was. And so they killed blacks, they burned homes, they lynched people, and so the blacks who were in this area got removed. I mean, they got the stuff was burnt out, and so then like further on, when you look at Hell's Kitchen, Hell's Kitchen was a place that.
And Hell's Kitchen is what area?
That's like what is now like Lincoln Center and that part of the area. And so, like, when Monk was a child and he moved, Thelonious Monk, when they moved, that was like a big black neighborhood. And of course, black people lived in Harlem then, but before that, Harlem was like, well-to-do people, white people lived in Harlem. But then blacks slowly moved up that area, So, I mean, like, as we're talking about it, I always, when we talk about things like that, I always say, okay, I'm going to go back now and do some research on that, just to prime myself for that, just to say, like to get, but that's what I remember reading, with that whole thing, and Lincoln having to divert the veterans, which is even one reason why, I mean, even though they did pursue Lee after the Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg, but many troops, I mean, he was not able to take advantage of the fact that many troops got siphoned off to be sent here to quell those riots. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was right about this neighborhood.
This neighborhood never, you said, this neighborhood is never like black people, never. I think, yeah, that's right. I mean, that's, but see, the thing is, the truth of it is that most places have never dealt with, have been able to deal with black people. I mean, that's very few places where black people like for the most part,
having their own thing and trying to survive by it.
Yeah, right. And people like.
If you come here and work, but as far as you owning anything and trying to be somebody.
You can't run it. You can't, you can't make big money off of stuff. I mean, they had them riots in Oklahoma somewhere, like around the 1910s, and black people had great money. They had businesses, and they were really like expanding, and then they had these riots, and likewise with the Reconstruction. See, now it's like we have so much money, this country does, that we can stand black wealth, but we can't really stand it like where it's concentrated. We can't stand it, and then, we can't stand, I mean, like I'm looking at Obama. See, Obama, like my man said, like Cassie was saying a while ago, that he's alone. He's up there in the White House alone because the Democrats, first of all, don't know how to fight the good fight. I mean, they just so fractured, and most part people don't really understand. I mean, the progressives don't even so-called progressives don't even see how they...
So, way back to time that you're talking about, most black people belong to the Republican Party, the federal.
At that time, yeah, right, the Reconstruction, because at that time the Republican Party were the radicals. They were the progressives.
Barn burners, they were called.
Huh?
Barn burners.
Barn burners? I hadn't heard that one. Barn burners. But I know that they were like, they were really fierce. I mean, like Lincoln was not as radical as other members of his party. Now, Garfield was one of the more radical members of, James Garfield was one of the more radical members of the Republican Party, and also the second president to be assassinated. But, you got to look at, that at that time the Republicans were the progressives. And progressive meant that they were going to take on some very controversial issues. And really, like, there was unequivocal what they had to do, Just like, the Civil War, that's what it was. It was like you were either this or that. And see, nowadays, we don't have this kind of, like, either-or thing. So the Republicans, well, they're kind of stronger about who they are than the Democrats are. But these progressives, they better understand that Obama's the best deal that you can get in the White House. There's not going to be better than him. It's going to be either him or more reactionary and conservative, and so and he's doing what he can do, I get fired up about it because I see them like they're complaining, they're like babies, they're like people who don't know how. I mean, none of them have what he has, and if any one of them who complain about him was in the White House, they would be doing less, I mean, that's my thing. So I got an article on my site about that too. I got this photograph I love of him. Somebody touched up so he looks like Mr. Spock. Because he's got the big ears. So they just made his hair slick and they put him. They got like instead of the flag pin, they got like the Enterprise pin over here. So, but he's thin like Spock. I mean Spock got a lot of gifts. Don't overlook, don't chump Mr. Spock. Mr. Spock, he can kick butt if he wants,
Nice guy, though. Huh?
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's intellectual, cerebral. He don't get all flustered up and stuff, But you see how he threw Captain Kirk across the room. He gets mad and he be doing stuff, So this is what we got in the White House. Because I heard somebody did something when he was a congressman or something in Chicago, tried to chump him, and he took the guy aside and said, "Look,
Yeah, that's when they threatened his wife or something like that, and he got kind of like, you had to step aside and say, look, you don't do that.
Well, he said that, but before he became president, when he was just a local, he had somebody threaten his wife in? When he was just a local congressman or in the Senate or Congress in Illinois, he had to take some chump aside and say, yo.
So he haven't lit up yet.
No, yeah, right. He plays hardball. This is what I see. I see Obama somebody who can play some serious hardball. He knows what he's doing. He's cool. Like my man Ishmael Reed said, he's the coolest man in the room, and and he's going to stick it out to the end. And I think the country's going to be much better off, than it would be, than it was. And I'm behind him, man.
So he needs to be a little bit more aggressive. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no. I say that he is. I just say that he's playing a certain game, just like Jackie Robinson. I mean, people were yelling shit at him, spitting at him, and he said, well, he was a fighter too. By nature, Jackie Robinson was somebody that wasn't afraid to throw down. This is what I understand. But they said, you got to play this game because this is the overall strategy. Keep your eyes on the prize. And that's what he did, and that's why what he did was such a heroic thing, and so imagine you have the first black president. I don't care, because I've heard some black people diss him because he was they call him a glittering mulatto. Man, he's black, and he even says he's black on the census. He married. You see the kind of woman he married. You know what I mean? So he's a black man, and even if no matter what he sees, whether he's mulatto or not. Everybody looks at him as being black. Especially these white folks that are just really afraid of anything that we do. He's a black man, and he's not going to just go the same way that they are going, and his name too. He's got an African name. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, we were trying to get Jesse Jackson up in there, you know. We were trying to get, I mean, any of
Shirley
the
Chisholm.
Yeah, Shirley Chisholm, all these English-sounding names, you know. I mean,
Dick Gregory.
Yeah, right. But then we got Obama. Obama? That's a black name, Jack.
How could he ever run for president?
Yeah, I mean, and he won, man. And he might get, you know, I'm telling you, like, when it comes time for the Republicans come up with somebody, they got to come up with somebody good, which I doubt that they're going to come up with anybody that can really beat him, particularly if the economy, if he can manage the economy to do something to show that he's, you know, like, you know, and the Republicans now, they're going to blow, I know they're going to blow with the opportunity here.